We live in a way more toxic world than we ever did. So our water's toxic, our air is toxic, our food is toxic, like everything is toxic. You can't get away from it. So what we need to do is we need to beef up your reserves and nourish your body. You're listening to Turn Your Soul On Radio. I am your host and visionary doctor, Dr. Brandy Victory, and my mission is to assist high-achieving women in closing the gap between feeling unfulfilled to living a life on fire. It is time, ladies, to champion our own lives and turn ourselves on. This is Living Victoriously, ladies. This is how you turn your soul on. Welcome back, beautiful ones. I hope that last episode was really helpful for you. Now we are finishing up our conversation on aging and what we can do about it. So age reversal techniques coming your way. So as we discussed before, aging is not something we can stop, but we certainly can slow it down. I feel like I've slowed down my aging process a lot, but I still have a lot of work to do. I get comments a lot about, I look younger than my age, and I believe that's because I've done some of these practices for so long and really taking care of myself. There's so many things you can do, but the bottom line is you have to choose it and you have to be willing to do the work. Like, it comes down to that. Like, it's not going to just happen overnight. You're not just going to be like, oh, yeah. No, this is a lifestyle, okay? And you have to choose it. And it's not always easy, okay? But if you can be more consistent with your exercise, it's going to help. You got to keep it moving or you lose it, right? As a chiropractor, I do still work with patients with chiropractic care, and I see a lot of people who cannot move their bodies, okay? And I hear all the time, man, if I had known earlier, I would have taken care of myself better. And that's like so common, and it really motivates me a lot to not stop moving. So exercise is clearly, obviously, like, this is one of the knowns, right? Diet's another one. So, essentially you are what you eat. So if you're putting in toxic foods, processed foods, sugar, food colors, preservatives, all that stuff is going to show up on your face. I can always tell when somebody's not eating clean because I can see it in their skin. So more veggies, less toxic ingredients, less processed food. Like, eat from the earth and eat a variety of colors. But I know you've heard a lot of this stuff before, but it's just a good reminder because we got to start somewhere, right? The other thing that I find is really important in the aging process is meditation or a spiritual practice. So, first of all, it keeps you sane. So less stress and less caught up in the ego. So if we're less stressed, then we're producing less stress chemicals in our brain, which is creating less stressful responses in our body and causing us to have less of a stressed out life. Like, that's the bottom line, which causes us to not look stressed out on our face or in our skin. All right. So meditation is a good way to go. And if we're doing that, we're not so caught up in the ego. Like, I actually practice Kundalini yoga, and there's this one practice, like this one movement and breathwork practice. It's called Ego Eradicator, and I can just do that one thing when I'm just getting all caught up in myself, and it's lovely. You can actually just look it up online, Ego Eradicator Kundalini practice, and you'll find it. It's really simple, but it helps you like let go of the constant chatter that can get caught in your brain and cause you to go crazy. Okay. If you want to take it to the next level, supplementation is key. I personally believe that everybody needs to be on supplementation, regardless if they're doing anti-aging supplementation or not, because the food that is grown in our soil today is way less nutrient dense than it was 50 years ago. Okay, so you would have to eat a whole bunch more spinach today than you would 50 years ago to get the same amount of iron and all that good stuff. So you're not getting even if you're eating clean. All right, even if you don't have any stress and you're eating vegetables all day long, you're not getting the nutrients that your body needs in the way that it needs, because your foods just aren't. Now, if you're growing your own foods biodynamically in your backyard and not using any herbicides or pesticides and that kind of thing biodynamically, then I can't say that would be a problem. Maybe you are getting enough nutrients, but I don't honestly know too many people that are doing that. I do know a few, but not too many. So, the food you eat is not nutrient dense enough to give you the nutrients that you need. So you've got to back that up. Plus, we live in a way more toxic world than we ever did. So our water's toxic, our air is toxic, our food is toxic, like everything is toxic. You can't get away from it. So what we need to do is we need to beef up your reserves and nourish your body so that you have what you need to counterbalance the toxicity that's in our lives today. So I actually perform something called a hair mineral analysis test with my patients, which tells me about their mineral ratios and if they have enough minerals in their body. It also tells me about toxic elements, so if they have too many toxic elements. And when we start looking at the ratios of toxic elements to minerals, we can actually see if they have enough minerals in their body to counterbalance the toxicity that's in their body. It's really, really awesome because it's one thing to have up here in the mountains where I do a lot of these tests, I see a lot of high arsenic and I see high cobalt. It's one thing to have those things high, but it's a whole nother thing to have the appropriate minerals that negate the toxicity of those things. So if you don't have if your minerals are depleted and you've got toxicity in your body, you're going to age way faster. If you've got enough minerals and you have toxicity in your body, the minerals will buffer that toxicity and help it come out of the body. So you're going to be better off as long as but you have to have those minerals in your body. So, making sure that you have nutrients in your body in that way takes taking supplementation. That's just the reality of it. There's a particular product called resveratrol. It's actually a nutrient, I should say. And resveratrol is a compound found in grapes. It's in red wine. It's in some nuts. And it's been found to ward off several age-related diseases like metabolic disease and heart disease and things like that. And this was from the National Institute of Health. And in animal studies, they found that severely restricting calories can help prevent some of those diseases like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and metabolic disease. And then they also found that resveratrol can mimic calorie restriction in some ways. So, and that doesn't mean go eat bonbons late at night every night and take your resveratrol and think you're going to be okay. But it is a way to activate certain enzymes in your body which control biological pathways known to be involved in the aging process. So they're called sirtuins. So sirtuins are enzymes that work with aging, and resveratrol affects them. So personally, I do not too often work with isolated nutrients like resveratrol would be an isolated nutrient. It's something one molecule of something they extracted from a food. I would prefer to eat the food or take a supplementation that is a whole food supplementation that has all of the nutrients found in the grape or found in the nuts, so that your body has everything it needs to assimilate that particular product. There is a nutrient called rutin, which is helpful for connective tissue and things like that. And literally the synthetic form of rutin will not have the same effect as the whole food form. So, I think this is across the board. It's important to know that God knows and nature knows, what's best there. We'll never get there and in a lab. So if you have the chance to get whole food supplementation, I highly recommend doing that instead of just like resveratrol on its own. The other thing you can do is clean up your gut. So pretty much I would say 99%, maybe 99.9% of everyone that comes to my clinic has a gut issue. So even if you don't feel like you have a gut issue, you could still have a gut issue, which is really interesting. If you have things like gas and bloating and indigestion, it's pretty obvious, right? But maybe you have food sensitivity to particular foods, or maybe those food sensitivities vary. Like I commonly have patients come and they're like, well, yesterday it was blueberries and today it's lettuce or whatever, and that's actually a classic sign of leaky gut syndrome. And when you have a leaky gut syndrome, it actually causes you to have sensitivities to different foods. You can have headaches, all kinds of different things. But essentially, it's an indication that the connective tissue, because the skin on the inside of your digestive system comes from the same root as the skin on the outside of your body. So if you're having a skin issue, like quick aging, it's happening on the inside too. So you got to clean that gut up. You got to repair the leaky gut. You got to replenish the the gut flora and the biome and get it healthy again, and then you will have that reflected on the outside as well. The other thing you can do is cleansing. I personally have several different cleanses that I work with my patients, but some sort of cleanse is good because it facilitates your liver detoxification, and when the liver is congested, it will actually back up into the skin. So your skin can start looking funky, or you can get pimples, or you can get wrinkling when you have a liver congestion. So that doesn't necessarily mean go out and do a liver cleanse, because let's just say you have an impacted colon and you do a liver cleanse, that everything you're pushing through the liver should be excreted, and if it's not, it's going to recirculate and get reabsorbed, and you're going to not enjoy that process one bit. So work with a practitioner on these kinds of things, of course, and get yourself on something that works for your body. Another supplement that I use frequently in my anti-aging protocols is something called Gotu Kola. Gotu Kola is really great for connective tissue, and some of my women call it a facelift in a bottle. They really love it, but you can pick that up. You just want to make sure that you have a very high quality product. Otherwise, your potency is not going to be as well, or it's not going to even be what you think it is. I actually just heard that the FDA did a study and found out that about 90% of the CBD products that they tested did not have CBD in it. So, it just goes to show you the supplement company is tainted, and we still need them. So you got to go to reputable companies and highly third-party tested and that kind of thing. Let's see. So what else can you do to reverse this aging stuff? Drink more water. Personally, I drink filtered water. We have a well, and I'm so happy because I don't get the fluorine or the chlorine or the fluoride or whatever. And drinking spring water can be good too. You just want to have your water tested to make sure that there's nothing in it that you shouldn't be drinking. Like, I feel like a lot of those hair mineral analysis tests that I do with my patients are high in those things because they're not filtering their water, and their water is toxic with those things. I pretty much think that's true. The other thing you can do is vortex your water. I personally love vortexing my water. This is something kind of off the cuff. I'll probably go more into vortexing water at some point, but basically you put your water through a type of system that causes it to be vortexed like a tornado, and it re-energizes the water with the molecular structure of what it comes from the earth. That is been a very powerful thing to me. I used to pee every 20 or 30 minutes, and since I started vortexing my water, that's not happening because I'm actually absorbing the water that I'm drinking, which is really awesome. These are just different biohacking practices that I employ for myself, and I'm sharing with you today. And if you haven't ever heard of biohacking, which most of you probably have, but it's a process of making changes to your lifestyle in order to hack your body's biology so you can feel fabulous. Okay, I am constantly looking for my next leg up. After I turned 40, it was like, I'm not 20. And my body doesn't heal as fast as it did, and I have to get more rest and all these things, right? But I want to minimize that as much as possible, so I find every single possible biohack I can to make this process slow the fuck down. Yeah. So, if you've got something going on, you want to definitely work with your doctor. But if you're just looking to stay healthy and biohack yourself, you want to work with a practitioner. So it's way easier to biohack health than it is to fix something that's broken. So just don't let yourself get broke. If you already are, start turning that shit around. All right, ladies, it was great talking to you today, and I look forward to our next chat. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Turn Your Soul On Radio. Go ahead and subscribe below, and if you feel it's worthy of a 5-star review, I'd greatly appreciate your support in this way. If you'd like to go deeper with me, you're welcome to join our private Facebook group, Turn Your Soul On, or take it to a whole nother level and apply for my 4-month Turn Your Soul On Masterclass. You're welcome to do this at drbrandyvictory.com. Whatever you do, turn your soul on.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Dr. Brandy Victory is not a medical doctor, and the views and statements expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Dr. Brandy Victory and the producers, disclaim responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.